Good evening again. We're going to jump right in. We have a presentation tonight to go over an option that is being called the middle ground. We're going to go through the presentation. There's most of the presentations by Herman, Townsend Turner, and Harry has a section as well. We're going to ask them to hold questions to the end so that we can get through all the content, but then we can open it up for questions at that point. So a review of the middle ground design option. We're going to just do a quick overview of the barriers to education, a review of the design language, prioritize needs and goals, and then we're going to jump right into the middle ground design, a compromise that meets educational needs and financial parameters. We're going to talk about scope, we're going to talk about cost, we're going to talk about compromises to address concerns, and what is the long-term plan. All right, so we're all familiar with this diagram. We've seen it a lot. It walks you through the history of your campus in regards to the educational buildings on the campus. So starting in 1934, you have the original high school constructed, and then it takes you through all the different areas of the buildings and when they were constructed, what they were originally used for, and what they're used for now. I'm not going to read these one by one. I think you've all seen this before, but it just kind of sets the table for what has been done over time to the middle school and elementary school on this slide. And then when the high school was constructed, which is 1970, your last major renovation in 94, what was removed in 94, and then the 2004 kindergarten wing addition. At the high school, built in 1970, in 99 the pool was added, and then in 2004 you had administrative and cafeteria additions. So that is the history of your buildings, educational buildings on campus. Barriers to education. I'm just going to hit the high level of these. The detail is there, and we did provide the presentation. Hopefully you have copies of that as well, and it's posted, I believe, online. The barriers to education. So this is really what came directly from the educational specification from the school leadership. And this is really what they need the buildings to address for them to provide the education to students. So safety, we need to address safety and security concerns. Right now there's inadequate vehicular and pedestrian site circulation. There's outdated classrooms limiting educational methods. Pond Cove Elementary and Cape Elizabeth Middle School have a sprawling layout and long travel distances. Ineffective oversight from main offices. There are limitations in the nurse's office. There's deficiency of natural light. There's complications from a shared cafeteria. There's inadequate storage facilities. There's a need for technology upgrades, and there's outdated and inefficient mechanical systems. Something that was added to that through the SBAC work was a barrier to education that was inadequate performing arts space as well. So design language and prioritize needs and goals. These were the items that came out of several workshops with about 50% educators, 50% community members, including students, and really set the language that we were to design to being guiding principles, the 8 that you see on the screen here, and the bubbles. And those are the educational and architectural priorities and the framework for making design decisions. So that's what these guiding principles are, from joy of learning, warm, safe, and inviting, STEM and art integration, collaboration and connection, flexible and adaptable learning, schools a community resource, outdoor nature connections, and fiscally responsible. I may have skipped over collaboration and connection. I think I said that one. And then essentially the 21st century school facility design patterns. So these are architectural approaches to architecture, and they start to address several of these guiding principles. And the 12 that are on the screen, we're going to show you how those are addressed throughout this project. If there's any questions about what those mean, we can talk about that as well. But the top 12, safety and security, gathering and collaboration, healthy building, outdoor learning and play, agile classroom, sustainability, flexible learning spaces and furniture, classroom neighborhoods, professional work areas, extended learning areas, breakout spaces, and enrichment spaces. And so this design language was really supposed to be the bridge between the educational specification and the architectural design solution. So this is what we needed to use in order to form an architectural solution that spoke to those ed specs. And the community helped us derive at a design statement. And this was used at a community forum. They came up with words and phrases that capture the essence of Cape Elizabeth schools. And they came up with design patterns, and then they arrived at a design statement. And this is the combined statement: a secure and nurturing community hub that fosters a joy of learning and collaboration by supporting students' discovery of their full potential. So what we were charged with is taking that design language, the design statement, and coming up with solutions that addressed the different needs and goals. And we're going to show you how the middle ground design addresses those. So the middle ground design, a compromise that meets education. Ready for you? Okay. So I've already introduced this slide. So what we're going to go through is we're going to go through what we heard at the school board meeting on May 21st, and per the school board direction at that meeting, we heard that it is crucial to choose a plan that unites us. We need to work on consensus and compromise. It is not B and is not E. We have heard from the community that there is a palatable dollar figure in and around a 10% tax impact. We're asked to start with a new middle school with full cooling that include other necessary upgrades to the elementary and high school. And we're asked to work with the facilities director to see what we can do with state funding. So that's referring to the school revolving renovation funds, or you'll hear me refer to it as SRRF. We need to look at this as a townwide initiative, and we cannot not meet the educational needs of our students. We can't compromise on what they deserve and what we have a responsibility to provide. So from there, we started our process. The first thing we did was listen. We went back and listened to several of the presentations and identified the challenges that various boards and our community members identified for options formerly known as B and E, and developed the design to address them. And later in the presentation, we'll go through those one by one. We also heard loud and clear that we need to minimize educational disruption and prioritize educational needs. We need to make sure that we minimize that disruption for the students. We need to address the site plan. We need to develop an approach that prioritizes safety and maximizes green space. It needs to have a long-term plan, a plan that addresses educational needs, financial parameters, repairs, and positions you for the future. And so at the elementary school, the design we're going to present prioritizes educational needs. It addresses safety and security. It addresses the repairs that are most efficiently done as part of a large project, and we'll explain that. And it provides a nurse's office that is properly sized and receives natural light. At the middle school, we prioritize educational needs. We've addressed safety and security. We've provided modern systems that include full cooling without fossil fuels. There's a fully electric heating and cooling system and the roof that is solar ready. And I will caveat that previous designs for the middle school had the full solar ready roof already. Full high school gymnasium, multi-purpose performance space, and it does not require additional kitchen staff. At the high school, we address repairs that are most efficiently done as part of a large project. And again, we'll explain that as we go through. So, the middle ground. The middle ground option is estimated at $89.95 million, plus or minus. This does not include estimated incentives for efficiency main. We are aware of them. The reason we didn't include them because what they are today may be different than what they are when we go to bid. So we're going to continue to track those, whichever way we end up in this process. We continue to track those efficiency main incentives. We put them in the budget and we zero them out so we can help pay down bonds if that's what you decide you want to do. But that is not included in that total dollar amount. So walking folks through, and I always I know probably everyone here has been following along, but just in case you have not, just to orient you to this graphic here, this is Scott Dyer Road right here where my little red dot is going back and forth. The entrance to the site is right here. The entrance to the site remains here. We have added turn lanes onto Scott Dyer Road. From the site, we have expanded the queuing along this parking. One of the biggest two big differences that you will see in this option from other options that you have been presented in the past is this combines the elementary and middle school parking and parent drop-off as well as bus drop-off here. So we have the drop-off in this area that serves the elementary and the middle school, and we have the bus drop-off here that serves the middle school and elementary. We've expanded queuing space here to get folks off of Scott Dyer Road for drop-off. We have a delivery area to the elementary school so that in neither the elementary or middle school do deliveries to the kitchen have to go through student spaces. So this will be directly accessed from outside. The other change is the LWCF, or Land Water Conservation Fund field that is right here, is relocated on site to this location here. So that actually, both of those moves in regards to the combined parking and drop-offs and the efficiency and the paved area, as well as relocating that land water conservation field in the location where the middle school was, in lieu of displacing fields over here, it was a very large savings in the site design. The option replaces the middle school like we were asked to do and provides the full cooling. The entrance is right here. We'll get into detail as to what the middle school and how it's laid out. The elementary school has 3 additions. We have the admin addition here. We have a boiler room, mechanical room, electrical room addition here, and then we have a STEM classroom addition next to the existing library. The main entrance is here in the location that exists today, but with the adjacent admin, and we'll talk through the benefits for safety and security as it pertains to that. And then we have repair and renovation work happening at the high school as well. We'll go through all of that in more detail. So in regards to educational disruption, we're able to have this project executed on a schedule that really provides 0% educational disruption. The reason that we can do that is we build the middle school, we move the middle school students over to this building, and then at that time you can take down the middle school. At the same time that's going on, the additions can be happening to the elementary school and be able to separate from the students, as well as the renovations inside the building and the work inside the building can be phased over school breaks in the summer. So we don't have to relocate the students out of the building or to another building. There will be times to where we do have to pack up some classrooms to do some work in there in the summer, but we do not need to relocate students. So going through the square footages, about 2,740 plus or minus square feet of renovation at the elementary, and that's what we're talking about, like full renovation. We're modifying walls, we're moving stuff around, and about 25,000 square feet of finished replacement, and we'll go over that in detail, as well as the repairs at the elementary school that we'll also go over. The additions are 4,635 plus or minus, and the new middle school is 110,690. So what does the elementary and middle school scope include? It addresses educational needs, and it also, the site needs are addressed. It addresses vehicular and pedestrian circulation. It maintains current number of athletic fields and quantity of green space on the campus. The elementary school addresses repairs that are most efficiently done as part of a large project, including mechanical, new flooring in classrooms and hallways, new ceilings in classrooms, and paint that can assist with wayfinding and other items. It provides a new secure entry vestibule with administrative offices, an adequately sized nurse area with daylight. It provides lobby renovations that double as collaboration spaces, and it provides a STEM addition next to the library. And we'll go into more detail on a lot of the repair items further in the presentation. The middle school, this addresses It addresses the middle school needs. It's a full building cooling is included, using a VRF system that provides electric heating and cooling. A backup heating system is provided in the event of power outages. The roof is solar ready. I will explain that backup heat, because it is an event of power outages, that uses fossil fuels, but that's not your daily heating and cooling. It's just in the event that you have power outages for extended amount of time. The new middle school, there's demolition and abatement of the existing middle school and construction of a new middle school on the current soccer field. The field's relocated on site. The new middle school resets the clock of one of 3 buildings, and it provides comprehensive approach to safety and security, energy efficient building, and complies with existing energy codes. Includes secure entry vestibule, a high school sized gym with 300 bleacher seats, a cafeteria, a stage for 100 band members, library STEM space, and 2 two-story classroom wings with right-sized flexible educational spaces. Middle school team neighborhoods with team collaboration and presentation areas are included, which is a really important part of education in middle school. And the new middle school performing arts spaces meet required sizes. The plan includes areas for potential future classroom and performing arts addition. And the stage can open up to both sides, allowing varying sizes of audience and multiple uses of space with sound mitigation between spaces. The high school scope addresses high school repairs that are most beneficial to addressing with large construction projects, and we'll go over that in detail. And then student disruption, least disruption to current students during construction. So as we talked about, when the new middle school is built, middle school students will move over to the new middle school, and the old or existing middle school will be demolished. And the elementary school work is achieved over summer and school breaks, so there's no student relocation cost. This is just an enlargement of the elementary middle school area, so you can see what we are talking about in regards to the drives, as well as the middle school area, with the additions here to the elementary school. All right, this is set up pretty similar to the previous presentations. We didn't want to venture too far from it because of for consistency, but anything in a red box is an addition, and so I've put these both on the entry level of middle school and elementary school, so it's not exactly, the space between isn't exactly the scale, but the drives and everything would be in here. This is where you would enter the middle school. This would be the new middle school, and then on the lower level, you'd have the lower wings here and here. Over here is the elementary school entrance with the admin addition, your mechanical addition here, and then renovations in the building, and there's some more renovations we'll show in a minute, and then there's another addition we'll show in the next slide here. So this is the STEM addition next to the library, and these are the lower classroom wings. Now we're going to go into detail on each. All right, so when we're talking about the middle school, we really, both middle school and elementary school, one of the major things we heard was safety and security. And so safety and security is a layered approach. So we'll talk about different things that really drove the layout of the middle school. So having your admin at the front to have clear views out to the site, as well as having clear views into the building itself. So you have internal supervision as well as external. Another thing we talk a lot about is separation between private and public, and I'll explain what that means. So this building is set up to think about, okay, what are those areas the public may want to access in a school, and what are those areas that are really just for education? And we set it up so that we can close down the educational aspects of the school from the public side. That's great for after hours use. This also works out that these are the firewalls, so they already have, there's an efficiency because they already have closers and doors like that to be able to close down. And it also doubles as areas of lockdown. So there's different doors throughout the school like these that can be activated on lockdowns. Another thing that we heard is about circulation and sprawl. And so we took a measurement from the front door of the existing middle school to the furthest classroom in the middle school, and the front door of this middle school design here to the furthest classroom, and there's approximately 25% reduction in distance from front door to furthest classroom in the proposed middle school from the existing. So, a little bit of a busy slide, but I'll walk you through it. We wanted to show the level of detail that we get to at this level of the process. And so we have refined the plans, we refined the narratives, we've given a copious amounts of detail to the estimators, so they have even more to work off of and refine their numbers. And then we've started to identify the different spaces for everyone, as well as made some modifications to the layout for efficiency, and also have reduced some spaces and moved some shared spaces. This is the district tech office here, and you'll see in the elementary school it has the district SPED offices. Those are the locations we talked through with each of them as to where they want to be located for various reasons. But I'm going to walk you through really, you can read the labels and where things are, and I'll walk you through the general structure, and then we're going to get into the design patterns quickly so you can start to see where, how we arrive at these designs, and really the drivers are that language that the community and all of the visioning sessions helped us all arrive at to really make this a Cape Elizabeth design. So here's the entrance, the main entrance. We have administration, proximity to the secure entry, and great sight lines. So we have, that's labeled as a 9, so professional work areas. The 1 is regarding safety and security, so we have the secure vestibule, we have the views. We also have the deliveries to the kitchen from the outside, as well as the separation of private and public here. As we come into the building on this side, we have our cafeteria, our stage, and our gymnasium. And we've started to show you how you can lay out different configurations of seating to really have as much flexibility as possible. So this is generally how you would lay it out if you had a performance. So if you took this and mirrored it over here, that's what it would look like. If you took this seating and you mirrored it over here, that would be the layout for the cafeteria. And talking to the principal, there's 2 lunches in that cafeteria, so that's sized for those 2 lunches. The stage is sized per the requirements of the middle school music programs to fit over 100 band performers on that stage. And then if you were to open up this stage to the gymnasium side, you can see that this is close to 500 plus or minus seats on the floor and 300 in the bleachers. So quite an audience for that type of performance on that side. The hatched line here is the expansion of the gym. So this is the difference between what you would call a middle school size gym and a high school size gym. So this shows the high school size gymnasium with lockers, gym storage, a gym office, an exit. We have the kitchen right off of the cafeteria, and we have building services. And I've had several people ask, what are building services? This is your main mechanical room, this is your main electrical room, this is your janitorial office, this is all the stuff behind the scenes that make the building work. They're the main spaces, and there's other ones distributed throughout the building. So as we go back to the hallway, we have skylights to infuse natural light. Yep, it works. Put it on this end, I think? No, it's okay. I'll keep going. So back to the center, back to the center here. The lobby spaces are also created as extended learning areas, like you've seen in some of the examples of other schools, where there's areas together as a group or one-on-one with folks. As we come into what's called the heart of the school, and we talked about this in the visioning as well, we have the library or learning commons, as we also refer to it, the STEM or STEAM room adjacent to that, and then the tech, district tech offices adjacent to that. Had some great conversations about a number of people and how that would work and wanting it to be centrally located. We have a clinic with access to the outside as well as daylight. We have the mindfulness program, art, and then we have the band instruction, chorus instruction, and the band room. So pretty much this whole area here is for band, chorus, and music. And then Pretty similar design on the wings. Few differences, but I won't go over that level of detail. But essentially, these are creating those classroom neighborhoods we've talked about. So as we come past the public space more into the private space, we have building storage, which we heard was important. We have restrooms that are designed for flexibility. We have indoor mechanical space. We have our special education programs that are also designed as flex classrooms. We have teacher rooms, and then we have these 6 classrooms in blue surrounding the team gathering collaboration area, as well as world language. And so really creating this home within the middle school model, again, for that collaboration, classroom neighborhood space and extended learning. And you can see the different labels that we've provided to really outline for all the 21st century design patterns around flexibility, pull-out space, and so on and so forth. So just going down lower level, very similar to the upper levels, and just another level of detail. One thing to note is this space back here has great southern light. It makes a great outdoor learning space in between these 2 wings, and can be accessed from the lower team levels, as well as the stairs. So in massing, currently this is what this building looks like in massing. And this allows us to start to give it form and shape, as well as start to assign materiality and things like that for the cost estimate. We've labeled the different areas. I'll just orient you with the front. So right here is your secure entry. This is your admin here with your views, cafeteria, stage, gym, kitchen and building services. And then this here is library, STEM, art, music, and band. And then your 2 classroom wings with your outdoor classroom in the rear. And so again, tying us back to the design statement as we look at the welcoming entry, a secure and nurturing community hub that fosters a joy of learning and collaboration by supporting students' discovery of their full potential. And again, just really emphasizing that safety and security, reducing sprawl, and the separation between public and private in this scheme. I'm going to jump over to the elementary school and walk through what's in the elementary school. So similar to how we started the middle school, really emphasizing the safety and security. So what we have done is we've added an administrative wing here, talking through with the school leadership. They really would like to have the main entrance in this location after exploring several areas. And that allows us to reuse this entry, create a secure vestibule with adjacent admin and security. In this space here, we have waiting area for reception, assistant principal, the storage for administrations of file records, things like that, as well as the special education director, their assistants, and the district sped storage and restrooms. Another addition here is boiler room, mechanical room, electrical room. When the middle school is removed, this allows these systems to no longer be shared with the middle school. It rebuilds the space, addresses some of the repair items that were part of that area as well. And then the other addition is the STEM scheme classroom. This is a very flexible, hands-on project room. And then there's renovations, major renovations in the area where we remove the admin and the nurse, as well as the lobby spaces, hallway, and the other lobby space as well. And then you'll also see where we have identified the replacement of different finishes throughout the school. Again, grounding us in the design language, looking at prioritized design patterns, really emphasizing the safety and security, so secure entry vestibule with adjacent admin, views to the site from here, as well as the other diagram showed the views to the site back into the building. And then we have the professional work areas with the mechanical boiler room. We provide some new systems, as well as other renovations we'll talk about through the repair item and replacing mechanical systems. And we also talk about, in regards to sustainability and making those as efficient as possible. All of the new additions will be built to current energy code and be efficient envelopes. Maintaining green space, we're actually providing more green space outside the elementary school for outdoor learning and play. The flexible learning spaces and furniture really is emphasized in the STEAM room, but we'll talk about STEM STEAM room. But there's also money in the soft cost for the overall project for furnishing at the middle school, and the numbers we've seen recently would allow that to come over to have some furniture at the elementary school. Extended learning areas, so a lot of the renovations can serve as that. Both breakout spaces and extended learning can be created in some of these lobby renovations. And then again, the STEAM helps with the enrichment spaces. So we're going to dive into repairs. And as we were putting together the refined option, we really dug into the refinement of the repair items. We were able to identify, okay, what is being addressed already by this renovation, what is being addressed by these additions. We spent hours with David going through that list of things. He's doing a great job keeping up with a lot of things being created with Marcy on funding, and they're doing a lot of great work. I think you saw some of that in his presentation the other night. So we were able to go through that list, cross out things that have already been done, partially done, and so really refine all of that. This is a list of the items that are in the project for the elementary school as part of the renovation. Some areas that we were able to reduce from what we were carrying so we could refine the scope. Abatement, we had some pretty healthy allowances for that. Now that we've refined the scope, we've sent it back to the abatement professionals to review that, and they've been able to reduce that quite a bit. We've been able, but we were carrying that work for the elementary school for where we're impacting. We're replacing flooring in the classrooms, hallways, and other spaces, and we'll have a diagram here in a minute that shows you. Through that process, we provide floor cracking repair, which is a trip hazard right now, as well as locker bases under the lockers to address ADA issues and address the ramp outside the cafeteria. Those are all things we want to do as we're replacing the floor. So we thought too about, okay, if we're doing this, what else makes sense to package it with this? And again, a lot of these things like flooring repair throughout, finish repair in a huge area of the school is really beneficial when we're doing it with a large contractor because they can help with that phasing. So the other finishes we're replacing flooring, ceilings, and paint, and a lot of the educational spaces, and we can utilize that line item 2 to be able to select different colors for different grade level wings, so we can start to use that as an identifying marker for that area. In regards to energy efficiency, we're providing commissioning for new HVAC systems and had a lot of questions on what that is. So commissioning is a third party who works with the contractor and the design team. And they come in and they look at, okay, here is the design and the intent of these HVAC systems. And they work with the contractor to say, okay, you need to make sure you install them this way, and we're going to help you, we're going to oversee that you test them and that they're performing as intended. And if they test them and they fail, then they need to go back and test them. So they're really assuring that the systems are installed as designed for your intent and are as efficient as possible, as well as overseeing the training for school staff to make sure that they know how to utilize the system as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So that is what commissioning is. It's very standard in the industry, and is carried in, that's one item we found was carried in the repair line item as well as the soft costs, so we were able to make some reductions as well. Repair leaking sprinkler system risers included, metering on facility determined usage. We kind of broke down some of the other MEP items to different categories. So in regards to health, we're relocating the kindergarten exhaust fans. We're moving plumbing vents from air intakes. We're providing ventilation to quiet rooms. We're relocating the gooseneck on the kindergarten roof. And in the elementary middle school option, there was a 5th grade cooling option because it was where the summer school was happening. Well, now the summer school is in the middle school, so that is addressed through that scope. We're providing exhaust at the copier printer areas. So moving down to system integrity, we're replacing your HRUs, so heat recovery units. We're replacing unit 2. We're replacing and relocating kindergarten roof hoods. We're also replacing, oh, I duplicated this, we're replacing 1, 2, 3, and 4 of your HRUs. Number 3 is that really loud one that pretty much if you walk anywhere near it with your cell phone, it's going to tell you that your hearing is going to be damaged. And then we're also replacing air handler unit 1 on the roof, and the intake hood at the kindergarten, and we're replacing cabinet unit heaters or CHUs and exhaust fans. In regards to safety and accessibility, we're upgrading drinking fountain electrical circuits to dedicated circuits fed from a GFCI breaker and remove receptacle from general access in the corridor. In that, we will also provide what are called tiled wing walls. Essentially, the drinking fountain cannot protrude out into the path of travel because if somebody were seeing impaired, they might run into it. So these wing walls allow them to be able to detect it with their cane. That is part of ADA requirement. Updated updated car and bus drop-off, reconfigured for additional parent drop-off, queuing, and pedestrian safety. So all the site work, it's really addresses elementary and middle school accessibility and pedestrian safety. And then fire rating at the boiler room. Well, when we rebuild the boiler room, that will be addressed. And then updated emergency lighting, fire alarm consistency and horn strobes, and second fire alarm annunciator panel that was requested by the fire department. All right, that was a lot of reading. Back to pictures. So this is a diagram showing what is happening in this option at the elementary school. Essentially where there's a crosshatch, there's a new addition. Where there's a diagonal down, there's a renovation. Where there is the cyan color, there is an item that essentially provides new flooring, ceiling, and painting, and what is not carried in these spaces is millwork. And then in the gray area that you see assumes new flooring, and that would be a resilient floor that does not require waxing, so it helps reduce maintenance as well. So this here is really the main entry level. You can see that the flooring is being replaced in the corridors, the cafeteria, stage, and then you have flooring, ceiling, and paint occurring in classrooms and classroom neighborhoods. This area, the gym, is currently being replaced by facilities. And then as we go upstairs, those colors continue. And you can see that the flooring is addressed on the upper level, as well as ceiling and paint, in addition to flooring and the education spaces. So looking at the massing, so again, trying to put shape and materiality for estimating purposes, as well as percent of glazing on the exterior. So essentially, just to orient folks, this is where the entry is right now to the elementary. This is the entry to the middle school. We've given a new parapet face to both of them to kind of make them consistent and kind of fall to the background. This is now windows instead of a door. The main entrance is here with admin adjacent to that, as well as a canopy for inclement weather. Views out to the site from all areas of the admin, and then the mechanical room addition. So again, just entering similar to the middle school, reinforcing one of the big items around safety and security being addressed throughout the school. We're going to move on to the high school. So you can see the areas that are receiving renovated scope within the building in the gray. This is the main entrance. You can kind of see the bottom of the middle school beyond. So high school repairs addressed as part of the overall construction. Abate hazardous materials associated with the scope of work. Again, with the refined scope of work, we're able to reduce the allowance that had been carried. We are addressing general ADA compliance within the restrooms. We are replacing the roofs. We are addressing acoustic transfer between classrooms as well as guidance. And so these areas that you see with this blue highlight are the areas to where we will extend the walls all the way up to the deck, be able to seal any penetrations between, as well as address any smoke penetration along the corridor wall, and address acoustic transfer at the guidance, which you'll see on the next floor. In regards to system integrity and health, we're addressing indoor air quality through mechanical replacement, and we're addressing unit ventilators in classrooms to provide adequate ventilation. Through reviewing this, the district has replaced 18 of those units, so we are able to dial in that number to provide the exact number. We will be going back and adding louvers to those 18, so they have the correct size louver to get the right amount of outside air pulled in through those systems. And then we also provide commissioning for the new HVAC systems. And so this is the upper floor here, and I can see the different color, but the guidance is right over in these areas as well. So how does the design address the identified barriers to education? We're going to break it down by each one. And in regards to safety and security, the new middle school takes a holistic approach to safety and security, providing layers of security. This includes a secure entry with sight lines in all directions, the ability to separate public and private spaces, wayfinding spaces that allow people to know where they are in the school in case of an emergency, and for a general sense of safety, as well as other features. The new elementary provides a secure entry with adjacent administration with sight lines in all directions. There are barriers outside to prevent vehicles from driving into the entrances and pedestrian areas. Inadequate vehicular and pedestrian site circulation. Vehicular and pedestrian concerns on the existing site have been addressed with separate bus and car drop-offs, sidewalks, and elimination of cut-throughs across pedestrian areas. This circulation on the site was reviewed with the transportation director, and she was very happy with it, excited about the turn lanes, as well as the clear separation between parent and bus. The outdated classrooms, limiting educational methods. New middle school right sizes classrooms and integrates flexibility to allow the school to evolve as education evolves. The middle school integrates team areas that are integral to middle school education, and the elementary school renovations and additions will provide updated educational spaces and a STEM space adjacent to the library. Pond Cove, Cape Elizabeth Middle School sprawling layout and long travel distance. The new middle school allows us to address the sprawling layout at one of the 3 schools, while planning for future investments in your elementary school to address these concerns. Inefficient oversight from the main offices. The new middle school and elementary school admin addition provides secure entrances with admin for oversight of both cars and bus drop-off. Nurse's office limitations. The elementary nurse office is relocated to have direct outdoor access, natural light, and right-size space. The new middle school has a nurse office that is adequately sized with direct outdoor access, natural light, and is integrated into the administrative office at the main entry. Deficiency of natural light. The new middle school allows us to integrate the usage of natural light throughout the school, which studies show improves educational outcomes. New additions at the elementary school integrate natural light and views to the outside. Complications from shared cafeteria. With the construction of the new middle school, the existing cafeteria will be used solely for elementary school. Inadequate storage facilities. Provides shared building storage as well as adequate classroom storage in the middle school. Provides adequate admin and district special education storage in the new elementary admin addition. And something that's not up here is it provides casework at the nurse as well as the administration and STEM spaces in the elementary school for adequate storage. Need for technology upgrades, working with the technology director for the district. The new middle school and elementary school will be outfitted with the latest technology and infrastructure to support education. There is a separate technology line item in the soft cost. Outdated and inefficient mechanical systems. The construction of a new middle school will include new mechanical systems. We can extend their useful life by integrating them into the building rather than having them on the roof as they are in the existing school. And critical mechanical system repairs at the elementary and high school are also being addressed as part of the project. Inadequate performing arts space. The new middle school solution will have a stage and music band classroom that meet the specifications requested by the music band staff, including a stage, large enough to hold a 100-plus person band. The stage, when open to the gymnasium, will be able to have over 510 spectators and chairs, plus additional 300 bleacher seats, nearly double the amount of spectators we could accommodate in the option B multi-purpose space. All right, I'm going to take a breath. We're going to get into compromises that address concerns from the former option E, and we're also going to do those for B. And then we'll go over the long term, and I'll pass it over to Chuck. All right, concerns. So what we did is we listened through the presentations and we pulled out everything that we heard, and hopefully we cut it off. We missed something that was not intentional. But we really wanted to understand where the concerns were. So we outlined what we heard from E, or what we heard, concerns we heard regarding former option E, and then we talked about how they're addressed in the design. What we heard is full cooling is not included in the project and relies 100% on fossil fuels. So to clarify the middle ground design, the base price for the new middle school in the solution includes full cooling with backup heat utilizing an electric VRF system for heating and cooling. Backup heat utilizes the fossil fuels in order to be effective during a power outage. The design, the next one is the new middle school eliminates 1 acre of green space on the campus. The design now replaces the displaced field and location of the existing middle school. At one point we were talking about relocating some, or having additional fields, but that should have been deleted. I apologize about that. The nurse office at Pond Cove will remain undersized and windowless. The plan includes the relocation and renovation of the nurse's office to the location of the existing administrative office, providing natural light and direct outdoor access in the event of emergency. Does not align with solar initiatives. The heating and cooling in the middle school will be fully electric, and the new middle school roof will be sized to be solar ready. Creates a sprawling campus. This provides shared parking and drives between the middle school and elementary school. It separates the elementary school and middle school, maintains quantity of fields and green space, and minimizes footprint of middle school. Option E. Proposes a much smaller gym that will inhibit PE and sports. This design includes a high school-sized gym at the middle school, as they currently have. The fields in the gym have been reviewed and confirmed by the athletic director, and they will meet the PE and athletic needs of CAPE students. Lacks a performing arts space. The new middle school will have a stage and music band classrooms that meet the specifications required by the band music staff, including a stage large enough to hold a 100-plus person band. The stage, when open to the gym, again, will have 510 seats, 300 bleachers. Cost above a 10% tax increase will not be supported. The design estimated cost is approximately $89.5 million plus or minus. I don't get into taxes, so I'll have to have other people tell me what that is or is not. So essentially that is the estimated cost for this solution. A new middle school requires staffing increases / resource duplication. There's little overlap between staffing presently between the elementary and middle school. In reviewing the plans with food service director, she confirmed she will not need additional staff from what she currently plans for. Overlooks critical needs of the elementary school and high school, and will increase our CIP expenses. This addresses critical building and site safety needs, mechanical replacement, and scope related to health, safety, accessibility, system integrity, and energy efficiency, and addresses concerns of acoustics in the high school and elementary. Concerns we heard regarding former option B. And I should go back. I didn't mean to skip over the CIP expenses. Chuck will go into detail on what we've looked at in regards to that in a minute. Concerns we heard regarding former option B. Mostly about portables and disruption to learning, especially after the disruption of COVID. So as we mentioned in this plan, we will not have to utilize portables at the new, as the new school can be constructed without moving students. We've already talked through the plan there. Option B is a lot of money and disruption for very little change to the learning and working environment. The design addresses educational needs identified in the educational program report and barriers to education in the new middle school. Elementary and high school scope addresses items such as safety, STEM, mechanical, HVAC systems, as well as a refresh of spaces in the elementary school. All the compromises are made to educational spaces. The part it's missing is school. So again, the scope, same response to the above question. We will still have load-bearing walls, so middle school classrooms remain undersized and inflexible. The design right-sizes middle school classrooms, minimizes load-bearing walls, and provides a variety of 21st century collaborative and flexible spaces to meet the demands of modern education and to support the teaming model that is integral to middle schools. No music classroom renovations. Again, the design provides new music and band classrooms and meets the demands of a robust program and outlines things we've talked about already. No new bathrooms. The middle school provides modern-day single-user restrooms with sufficient counts for both students and staff. And then the unknowns of renovation, opening up walls can be very costly. The design minimizes renovation and therefore costly unknowns. Sprawling nature of the school remains. This is addressed in the new middle school, and you'll see our future planning for the elementary school, how it attempts to address that. It doesn't address collaboration, breakout, or flexible spaces, especially in the middle school. We've already gone over how the design addresses those. Sustainability and well-being, we can only provide natural light in limited ways. The new middle school allows us to integrate the usage of natural light, and also we're able to do that in the new additions to the elementary school. We cannot separate private and public spaces in the building. Provides clear separation between public and private classroom spaces in the middle school and the elementary school, with the exception of the elementary school library. The admin addition remains visually and physically distant from the heart of the school. This provides a central middle school administration addition at the heart of the school and has sightlines inside and outside the building. That was more specific in regards to the middle school. And then last but not least, sustainability. Patchwork construction is not sustainable. The school cannot be upgraded to come close to meeting current energy standards. Repeated renovation is not sustainable in the sense that districts struggle to afford the cost of maintaining old buildings. And education has evolved to where renovation generally cannot meet those standards. This replaces 1/3 of your school buildings with energy efficient building envelopes that meet the current energy standards. And the more energy efficient your envelope is, the less impact on your heating and cooling loads. So both the new middle school as well as any of the additions take that into account. And then adding the current buildings limits what we can do in the future. Replaces the middle school and looks at a strategic plan to replace sections of the elementary school to minimize relocation of students and maximize green space. So, in summary, if we move forward with the middle ground solution, this is what the timeline looks like. So you have the 1948 building, you have the 1952 building, and the 1960 building on the elementary school. You have the 1962 Lunt building, again reminding us when the high school was built, and you have the 1994 addition, and we also have the 2004 addition for the kindergarten. And then we add the secure entrance, secure and welcoming admin addition, the STEM addition and renovations. We also add the middle school and the high school renovations, as well as relocate the field where you see on the screen there. And then we remove the middle school, probably before we build the site. But then at the middle school, you can see the middle school. So you start to see the middle school here, you see the elementary school here, and then the field here. This is not showing all the site drives and everything on this one. And then at the high school, we have the high school when it was constructed, the pool addition, the admin and cafeteria additions, and then the work and renovation happening as part of the middle ground solution. So then we look at the long-term plan. And so we looked at this to say, okay, if we go forward with one here, and we have our addition out front for the admin, we have our mechanical addition here, and we have our STEM addition here. If you were to start to think about replacing sections of this elementary school over time, some of the biggest things we heard were around sprawl, age of buildings. So the first place we look are at these wings back here, your oldest wings, the biggest variety of building type. We have three different building types back here, as well as this is the longest distance to travel within the school. So if you were to build a 3-story addition here, it pretty much fits right on the site with the current site plan that is being outlined in the middle ground solution. You could put your library, your music, your art, and music programs on the lower level, and then have a story of classrooms and another story of classrooms here. And then you could remove this section. So if we do 1, and then we look at 2. You could build this addition, and you can either keep this, depending on how quickly you want to move. And so just trying to think about this piece by piece. If quickly you want to move, you want to take these down, and this suffices, settles the need at whatever time period you do this. You could take this down. Or if you want to do this and then come along and replace these 2 wings, you can keep this up and move your students into these wings and rebuild these 2 wings. And so that would allow essentially this option here to where you can build these and take this down here. So flexibility depending on the need at the time. So once you replace those wings, then you can look at renovating these core spaces of cafeteria, kitchen, stage, and gym, or replacing them. But essentially it provides you a very compact footprint, whether it's this configuration or even if it's just replacing these wings back here as well. We gave some general estimates on square footage for those areas. So about, I can't see all of them, 36 square feet, 36,000 square feet plus or minus for this. If you were to execute that other one, I'll keep going, it's about 54,000 square feet, and then renovating the existing spaces. Walking through that, just quickly showing what that would look like long-term plan-wise if that were to be executed. You have your 1962 building, which is now the oldest building in the front, which is right behind when the high school was built, and then you have your 94 edition, what was demoed in the 2004 edition, the field, as well as the addition for the admin, STEM, and STEM would be removed with that addition, and then the mechanical would be added in that era. Remove the middle school and provide the 3-story addition of the library, art, music, classrooms. So this removes the sprawl by condensing the footprint and removes the oldest wings in Type 5 construction. And then you can finish that area. So at the high school, going forward, you have your 7th night when it was built, you have your pool, you have your admin, cafeteria additions, the working projected 2027 if you were at a fall referendum, and then a possible long-term plan of renovations or new build, and it really depends on the extent of the program needs, work that is prioritized or done over the years, but generally that could be what a long-term plan looks like. And so we really looked at this 2 ways. So a lot of the sort of background, the general notes that you have seen in the past are over here in regards to where a lot of this data comes from. In the middle ground option, this is a reno ad for the elementary and new middle school and repair at the high school. So the new middle school, 60 plus or minus years with some building system and some material replacement, around 20 to 40 years, and mechanical systems. Or within the building to extend the life of the systems. This removes hydraulic piping in middle school, which we had over here you need to replace in about the next 20 years. Elementary renovation, all in total, a little over 27,000 square feet, about 4,600 in addition. This provides your new boiler plant, electrical room, mechanical room, heat recovery units, cabinet unit feeders, exhaust fans, air handling units are being replaced as part of the project. These replacements will extend the life of most systems, 15 to 20. You're getting interior floor and ceiling and paint. And new additions would need new system and equipment replacement around the 20 to 40 year mark, and roofing to be replaced using SRRF funds, as well as windows and masonry repair plan for the CIP. And so looking at this, essentially you have the middle school that is out at this 60-year mark of a renovation or replacement. And then you also have the high school right around that 10 to 20-year mark. And then the elementary school, with the amount of mechanical repairs, what has been identified for SRF funds and the CIP, staying within the CIP budget, is somewhere between this area, give or take. The other way we looked at this was version 2. So what if you did the long-term plan like we showed in the diagram, and you took this in small chunks, and you said, okay, we're going to replace the middle school, the elementary school, 2 grade levels, as well as art and music and library. Looking at doing that in this time frame, it's about 15 to $22 million. These are all in $24. And then if you were to do the next section of building out, another time period, it would be in this area about 20 to 30 million, and then the remaining area of the building 10 to 12. So again, looking at this area, this way of kind of spacing out the replacement of sections of the elementary school over time, based on the scope. And so with that, Chuck is up next to go over the separate slides in regards to CIP and SRRF. A couple bullet points here to ground the conversation as he jumps in. But this essentially distributes estimated repair items to be addressed within SRRF funding within current maintenance and CIP yearly budgets.
You guys define SRRF.
Thank you, Lisa. Great presentation. For the benefit of our audience, we now will be hearing from Mr. Chuck Adam, who will be discussing specifically the capital improvements projects.
Correct.
Presentation.
Thanks for having us. It's usual that I get a chance to talk, but glad to take some load off of the phone. Lisa did a great job. I think we can all attest to that. We're specifically going to speak tonight about the CIP, as we've come to call it, which is Capital Improvement Plan. This is a plan that was created at the very beginning of this process with the SBAC to look at what long-range projects, what are the deficiencies within the buildings, and how can we address those as part of the concepts at every step of the way. When we had 7 concepts, there were X many of these we could take care of in each one of the concepts. We narrowed down to 2 concepts, and they were defined and what was each one of those. The team between Harriman and Turner 10,000 here has been reviewing the combined. I say combined because it's Harriman and Colby. Yes, we knew there were concerns with Colby report, but the one thing we'll add is they did a tremendous amount of work in analyzing the buildings. I think we all came to the agreement that perhaps there were some issues on how they were priced, but at least they were identified, and that was very helpful. When Harriman walked through at the very beginning of their engagement, they added more items, and they reviewed the items that were already there. For the last 8 months, we've been reviewing that and updating that plan for all 3 of the buildings. Like I said, the total list helped develop the concepts of what could be included in each one of the concepts as we went through the process. Our plan all along, and it is in every project that we've ever done, is to, okay, narrow down the concepts and then go back and revisit the CIP and say, okay, what can we include in these options as we move forward? And we were prepared to do that once the SBAC had chosen to go with option B. Said, okay, let's go back and look at the CIP again. Let's make sure it defines. We've got everything defined. There's overlaps and other things that can be done. But the plan was shifted. Our plan, the management plan, was shifted when we were asked to work with Harriman to come up with what we're calling the middle ground, a compromise solution. Which is fine. These things are never cast in stone, and they always move, and we move with it. So over the past few weeks, we have poured through and evaluated all of the CIP, all of it. We've looked at all of it as it relates to the high school and the elementary school. We did not spend the time to go through the middle school because, quite candidly, this proposal tonight, or in the past few weeks, replaces the middle school. There was very little need to go through that, other than to identify some work we could do as part of the bonded project, which was, let's abate the building as part of the bonded project. So when it comes time to demo it, it's all included. That's what we included. I will tell you, this is a working, fluid, not a static document. It changes all the time, and it's supposed to. has to change based on what work Dave's doing and what work's projected to do, and quite candidly, what work becomes more of a priority as you go year to year to year. Some things fail, you have to be able to adjust and move through the program. We're hoping to leave at the end of this, no matter which way you go, to leave a plan for David and the superintendent that says, here's the plan we developed. I hope you can use this. You should be able to use it. And we'll work you through the usage of how this spreadsheet works. We added items to the spreadsheet. We added items. We also took away items. We took away a lot of items, which was a very good thing. And it's important to note that the costs included in all your items tonight, all of the items we're going to review tonight, includes a 25% markup. We only did that to put to a 25% markup is the kind of money you would pay if you had one contractor come in and do a large amount of work. We kept it all in there that way so that it was apples to apples comparison for the entire process. If we were doing small projects, we would not include 25%. If we were big projects, it was 25%. But in order to compare everything, we did everything was a 25% markup. When whatever is decided to go forward by the town and even with David, we'll take out that 25% and let him understand what the dollars do. We're going to talk about what it does as it checks out the six years as well. I put an X across this one because it has caused some concern with people. I've heard that concern about it. I'll go through it. This is just a summary, and this will be reflected in the further I go through this. The column on the left, I'll use Conco for an example. The column on the left, those are the 2024 report. That's today. That's this year's report of items that are shared between the middle school and Conco. These are all the items we defined. The column in the middle is meant to show for us as an internal working of the spreadsheet how much of that is dedicated, how many items can be removed from this that are dedicated to the Conco only. In other words, we subtracted out a lot of all the middle school work. It's a calculation that's hidden in a formula. It should never have been here. It's confusing. It makes the numbers a little weird. And I apologize for that. When you get to the project cost of 25% markup, that's just that. That's just the Conco issues. And I'll mark that. Very similar to the other number, but I assure you it's just a math exercise, nothing more than that. The items in yellow, these are all of the items within that 15 million number that are included in the proposed solution. That's more than $90 million of work that's included from the original CIP. The 2.9 million is in the blue. These are items that we've talked with Lisa a great deal about. We talked with Dave a little. David's not in full agreement. I'm straight up about that, which is great. I want to have the discussions back and forth about what could be applied for the SRF funding. Why we wanted to separate that out is to show that there's a way to help get financing for a portion of that work. Work's still got to get done. Don't get me wrong. We're not subtracting it from the project. We just wanted to highlight it to say this has got to be addressed, and this is one way to do it. The green is all these are the items we reviewed with David and reviewed with the engineers that are working with Harriman and said, you know what, there are a lot of things left over from the original report. They really don't need to be done because now we're doing so many things in the yellow that starts to take away these things. And then the remaining, the 1.6 million, these are the things that are left to do in the CIP for just dedicated to projects.
I don't want to help you.
Tim, you need to mute. There you go. So that's all the detail you'll see in the next sheets. On the current high school, we start again. The original CIP cost for the markup, the 15 million, was the number agreed to by the SBAC. We want to make sure we carry it in the options as we went through. As Lisa said in her presentation, and looking again globally and having the abatement engineer, abatement consultant, look at the project as a whole and say, based on the work we're doing, how much of it do we truly have to abate? They said, you know what? You can take out 1.2 million of the abatement that was carried in the original CIP. You can take it out because you're not going to touch that number. You don't have to do it right now. It's a huge move for us. That drops us down to 13.8 million. Again, 2.2 of that we're putting in the proposed solution, that's in the yellow. The 7.7 is a complicated number. It looks like a big scary number, but it's a complicated number. And we're going to explain that in more detail. So put that off to the side for a minute and forget it. I'm sure you're not. It's 7.7 billion. The green, again, if these are things that are done, David said, don't worry about it, I'm taking care of them, or I've taken care of them already. And then the remaining CIP items are completed. When I say completed in the CIP numbers, these are over the next 6 years in today's dollars. But I can show you how we forecast out as you start to map it out between 2024 and 2030, what that looks like in those dollars. This is the spreadsheet. I won't spend a lot of time going through. I won't read all the items as much as you want to, but it is intense. There's a lot to it. The only thing I'll focus is on the columns that are, that's fine. Columns from the left that start off with the years on them, and the 2024, 2025, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. These are our shots at putting our first look at putting where they might get done over the next few years. Why that's the part that bumps up here on the right-hand side of this discussion. As you go through, it does it all the way out for all of the items on what's the best. The key we wanted to focus is, see if I can zoom this. The key we wanted to focus here is, that's the same chart that you saw previous, the summary, but all of the photos across the bottom. Talking with the school department, the concept was as close as we can get to about $1.2 million per year is ideal between the two schools as you move forward. You can see in some areas we're good. We're 463, we're 475,000, 318,000. Again, this is just high school. And it shows that there's room to be able to do more work between the two buildings you go through. Now I'll talk about that $7 million for next year. What that is it's the two firms that looked at the building and identified that the exterior envelope, exterior walls of the building, has some deficiencies, but nobody's quite sure what that means. Nobody knows what the deficiencies actually are. It just appears there's some deficiencies, there's some failed windows, some other things going on, and they need to be looked at. It's hard to us quantify, we try to, what does that mean? So part of the original CIP that we put in, work that needs to be done right away, is to do a study. There needs to be a study of the exterior of that building. It's around $75,000 in today's dollars, next year, the year after, to really look at the exterior envelope of that building and define what needs to be done to it. There's some very easy solutions to it. We've kicked around a few ideas. We won't peek it into them tonight, but there's some others that are not. But we don't know what's involved in that, and that has to be investigated further. So we wanted to put it on your radar that not only is that a good SRRF candidate to request state funding to look at those, but only after you have somebody come in who is professional evaluation of the exterior of that building. That's not in the scope of work to do, but it's not hard to do, and it can be done relatively quickly when you can fund it. Moving forward, the time code is set up the same way. It's structured all the way across. And what this gets to is, again, in this area here, it starts to lay out where the big dollars are. In years 2 and 3 is $1 million, this is on code now, and $1.6 million, because that includes a lot of the roofing work. A lot of the roofing work and some of the window work can be done part of SRF funding as well. Now, as Lisa explains it to me, you're allowed to do roughly $2 million every 2 years, every 5 years. So that means you can't make all one application to do all of it. But you can do it in pieces over the next 6 years, and it fits within this program. That's good. Now, you're not going to get, as I understand it, the full money for all of this, but you get a percentage back on it, which is very good, and that would lower these costs. And that's, to us, that's very exciting. Anytime you can get state money to help you out, as you know from the very beginning, it's one of the things we start to look at. If you wait and you've got state funding for any of this, what would it look like in the long term? So what's next as we go through this? as the concept, and I say this is still a concept, we're getting closer, but we're defining what the building's starting to look like and how it's starting to be built. We're going to keep looking at the CIP for efficiencies in the design, to include them either in the CIP, leave them in the CIP, or include them into the project / or the bond. The best way to do it, as much as we can get within the project / the bond, the better off we put within the parameters of the roughly $90 million. All of this takes more design, it takes more evaluation, it takes more information to look at, to really understand what those pieces mean. Some of the bigger numbers in here are just big numbers. They're exterior of the high school is a big scary number, 7.7 million. But nobody really knows what that means because it's never been fully investigated. There are others in there, electrical things, some of the window things. They're not been defined. They need to be continued to work with. As they evolve, which goes through in the referendum. Now, the process going forward is very clear. We continue to work with the school department on these FRF funding applications. We work with the school department to identify the best year to fund projects based on their budget. They tell us how much they think they get budget each year. We start to look at that chart on the right there and say, here's all the items that we can't include. Now we'll do this once the referendum passes. Once the referendum passes, we get into the design phase. We really get into designing the buildings. Like the question they came from our council members. What glass is here, what glass is there? We don't know that. We know it's glass. What the details of that glass is that comes in the next stage. That comes when you pass a referendum. We look and say, okay, you've passed X million dollars. Now we start to design the building and say, what can we include as that in the next process? That's the next part of this. It's always important to remember. There is still another 12+ months of the design phase. There's a lot of work to do. All those details get defined. As those details are getting defined, we may find more items, and fully expected to find more items in the CIP, or as we call it, a facility additions list, to say we should be able to do that within this project. Because we are also including in that budget of $89.8 million, we're also including contingency funds. We call it design contingency. That means we don't know everything that's not in this project yet. We're still in the early stages of design, so we carry a large contingency as part of the 89.8, 89.5 to say, okay, we've got ourselves covered in the budget. Now as we design the building and the building becomes more efficiently designed, efficient in sustainability and energy, but efficiency in the design process helps lower costs. If we can lower costs and start to kick some of these out, that's only going to make it long term. It's only going to make it long term for the schools as you move forward. Then you're not faced with a longer term project like Lisa was talking about into longer time frames. So that's why this is important. And again, I can't say this enough. This is a working breathing effort. This changes constantly, and it has to. We've identified the issues. Costs will change depending on when we do it or when we move forward. Real quickly, we want to talk about phasing the project. Lisa touched on it, and I really agree with her 100%. We've analyzed this at great lengths. Is the phasing away of how this building was built. We're able to how this building could be built helps with a great deal with the efficiencies and costs. It helps with not needing swing space. It helps with not displacing the students. It helps with so many things. There's dollar efficiencies in doing that. Not to mention the educational benefits. We're no longer impacting. We're now doing this. And the last thing I'll have to say before we get to quick questions, which I'm sure there will be a ton of, from our standpoint, and I mean only from our state standpoint, we've looked at this your buildings for the last 18 months. We've been up here for a long time. David called me on my first day of work when I started to work with Turner Townsend Erie 3 years ago. On the first project, before you did the first project, it was decided you didn't need my help, which is fine, you moved on, that's great. I drove up here, we looked at the schools, I wandered around them.
It became clear to us, and it also became clear to all of the architects that walked this project when we were bringing the architects through. Off to the side, each one of the architects said to us, replace the middle school, get 1/3 of it off your rolls and move forward. To them, it made the most sense. To us, and having done schools for this for a long time, we think this makes a lot of logical sense. We think it makes good financial sense based on the bond information that we got today or the tax implication information we got today from Mike, where there's very little difference between the two. To us, it's a very straightforward. This makes the most logical sense to us from a purely outsider's view, not looking at your taxes, not looking at the people living in town. How would we do a project going forward? So with that, I'll end.
Well, thank you, Mr. Adams. What we'll do is we'll have a lot of questions. If I could ask you to return to the seating up front. That way the questions will come and you and Lisa can answer those. Of course, the superintendent could jump in. I'm going to first just ask a quick question up to the school board chair, Seyfried, not to put her on the spot, but just for clarification, has the school board formally endorsed the compromise, or are you all still mulling this over too?
We just heard about this a week ago.
Okay. All right, so
I will say there was a positive reaction, but we have just heard about this a week ago.
All right.
So I think we have questions too.
Sure. Thanks. Okay. All right. Well, then we will open up questions, and we just let you all know the school board, our tradition is to begin with Councilor Penny Jordan. So we will turn it to her.
I always have a question. I think you kind of answered this, but I just need a bit of clarification, because as we went through developing costs for the various projects, I guess I should say up front, I think you guys did a really solid job bringing together the areas of concern for both of the options that we had put forward. And especially, I think the fact that we have cooling in this building now, also the gym and many of the other aspects that you incorporated, I think is great. My question has to do with, as we were developing our options over the last several months, when I looked at 89.95 million for this kind of hybrid option, and when we talked a few weeks ago, months ago, the cooling was estimated at $4 million. And at another point in time, the middle school, just as the middle school, was estimated at somewhere around $75 million. And so then I look at, and I understand how you've kind of scoped the high school's $16 million down to, I believe it's now $7. Let's see, the high school's down to now $2 million, and the elementary school's at $9 million. So you've got $11 million there. And so I just want to understand, you've got a square footage increase from 107,000 square feet of middle school to now 110,000 square feet. And we have cooling, and we have a gym, and we have of course, cafeteria, and we have stage, and we have all of these things. How did we get to the 89.95 million, recognizing that we have a larger building. And I understand scoping the elementary school and the high school. But that seemed a lot less than what I would think when you look at what has been added. In addition, how confident, because we often do estimates with a plus or minus X percent, especially at this stage of a project. So if we were to take this 89.95 million and consider that solution set and say, yes, this is good, meets the percentage from a tax increase perspective. With all of those changes, how confident are you with the 89.95% when you recognize it's a bigger building with more features?
I don't think, does my mic work now? Look at that.
Yes.
Great question. So a couple things. When we looked at the elementary school and we looked at changing the entrance from where it had previously been in options, and we looked at ways to keep the changing acronyms, the Land Water Conservation Fund soccer field on site. By doing that, we no longer need to take fields off-site. We no longer need to do all that off-site work. We actually saved a lot in the design because we had been replacing fields off-site because we moved that soccer field where the middle school fields were. And so there was a lot of reconstructing those fields off-site in addition to moving that field. And so we eliminated having to build those fields off-site and just moving them on-site. That, in addition to the efficiency on the way to which we laid out the site, we saved many millions of dollars in site work. So that was a huge reduction. And the number that had been forgiven previously for middle school had included all the site work. So that was a big reduction there as well. We have also gotten to the level of refining the soft costs. So generally, up until now, we've carried a 25%. That, give or take, that's generally where it comes in. We've gone line by line between all of the different categories. We're down to 22%. So there was a savings there. We also looked at, as we talked about, all the repair items, and we looked at which ones had been done, hadn't been done, and we get those reductions. The other things that we found, there was a different soft cost differences that had been double counted that we made sure were removed. There were items in repair and construction that we found were double counted. We were able to remove. So it's that level of refinement that we were able to do, but some of the big ones were in regards to the site. We were able to have some more efficient layouts in some of the building spaces, as well as really define all of the things for the estimator. So we now have design narratives for all the disciplines. We have floor plans, we have definition. They can get a lot more detailed in their takeoffs. So with all of that added together is where we found the reductions.
And how confident are you?
I'm confident.
I'm very confident. Sorry. We're very confident. We've been pricing, we independently of Harriman have been pricing the options as we've gone by our own independent in-house people. These people are experts in what they do. This is all they do. It's not me doing it. It's true, solid cost consultants and estimators that are part of our team. They use end industry standards for escalation. They have their finger on the pulse of the latest things that are changing in steel costs and drywall costs, which of all things fluctuates as much as anything else, as if you're buying drywall from Canada or you're buying it domestically. They're on tune with all those. We don't put our estimates together lightly. We put it in front of you. We trust it.
So you figure in a volatile market and you look at the trends and you look forward that in 2028, we can in 2027, we can project that we are confident with 89.95 million.
Actually, we bid this in 2026. So we're even
Early 27,
shortening.
late 26.
Yeah, we're even shortening the amount of time that we're quote on taking risk in the market. We feel very confident.
One of the other big reductions was on the abatement we talked about.
Huge number.
And so there was some big allowances there. Again, until we know what the scope really is, did we feel confident taking that number to be in alignment with the scope and the option?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All set. All set, Councilor Jordan. You're all set. You're set with your question.
I got many more questions, but I'll
All right.
share the mic with others.
I think what we can do then is alternate counselor of school board. So I see school board member Saucier.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually sort of a follow-up the question to Councilor Jordan's, and that's the size of the building. So, one thing I want to say before I ask the question is thank you for this work. I said a little bit at the school board meeting when we were hearing it for the first time, but I really appreciate that you dug in between the options and came up with this middle ground, working off of what SBAC did. I really, it's quite impressive. I also just one other comment before I ask my question is when you were refining this, I really appreciate that you incorporated the school professionals' opinions about various aspects of it. For example, the technology director, the band director, the athletic director, each of those components, obviously, if we're gonna build a new building or we want to make sure it works for the department. So I really appreciate that you did that outreach. My question to follow up is the size. I've had one question. Someone asked me about the size of the building. So it sounds like, and Councilor Jordan actually answered one of my questions. How much larger is it? Sounds like about 3,000 square feet larger than the previous iteration of a new middle school. Could you just explain what that additional square footage is? It seems I can guess one of them, which is a larger gym.
Most of it's.
Is that about it? The
Most of
3,000
it.
square feet? Okay.
Most of it's the gym, and there's some in the cafeteria as well, as we dialed in with the leadership at the middle school that they needed 2 lunch periods, and to size that accordingly for 2, we had originally sized it for 3.
Okay. So that's about it. Okay.
Mhm.
I've got more questions too, but I just wanted to follow up.
We also we had a couple of the one-on-one spaces. They did not. They saw that they could use the small collaboration spaces in lieu of that. So we actually took those out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's all for now.
For the benefit of the public, Councilor Stephanie Anderson did extensive work and submitted in advance extensive questions, which I think it'd be great to make it available to the public in some fashion, maybe attach the materials, unless there are any objections. But I think, and she sent it to the school board. At any rate, I guess, Councilor Anderson, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a lot of my questions have been answered in your presentation, so I thank you for that. I understand now that one of my questions was the cost of the new middle school.
Mhm.
And if you're looking at improvements to the elementary school and high school totaling 11 million, then your estimate for the middle school is 78, which is what it was originally.
It's well, give or take, because there's other things in regards to, soft costs and things like that equate in different ways. So you're seeing some numbers that I don't know if all of yours had soft costs in it or not when you presented the repair numbers up on the screen. They did. Okay. So the remainder of the project would account for that. We can break down exactly what that is, but I don't have the exact number for the middle school.
If I can ask another one, in terms of educational needs, there were several identified with respect to the elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they're mostly being abandoned by this. Separate space for world language and extended learning, spaces for the gifted and talented programs, 2 to 3 conference rooms for IEP, one-on-one meeting space with students, a response to an intervention suite, which I don't know what it is, but it sounds important. So are those being set aside for the moment?
I wouldn't say they are all being set aside. We talked with the superintendent about world language. He said they would continue a push-in model, which is what they have right now. And essentially, something we clarified is the gifted and talented is actually the individual that shares a room with world language right now. So they do have a home. The behavioral analyst, we actually, when we relocated the nurse and we redid the admin area, we created an office for them. There are 2 conference rooms included in this design, one in the admin itself, and then where the nurse was previously, we've renovated that into a conference room. We also have one-on-one meeting can be concluded in either of those conference rooms or other spaces throughout the school. The response to intervention suite. So to clarify what that is it's different interventionists. Right now, they are in 3 different locations. They said in an ideal world, they would be in a suite together, but they function as it is right now where they are. So as you look forward to doing things in the elementary down the road, you can look to put them into a suite style configuration. Inadequate storage, we made sure to add storage in the admin. We have 2 separate storage rooms in that space. And then based on furniture budgets, actually, we just had this year on a middle school twice the size of this. We got the clear picture as to where furniture budgets are coming in for middle schools. And with an amount of furniture dollar amount we've carried in the soft cost, about 2/3 of that will go towards the middle school and the remaining third can be used towards the elementary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would a member of the school board like to ask a question? Ms. McVeigh, you're online. Would you like to ask a question? All right. Well, you'll have another opportunity as we go around, but now the town manager, Mr. McGovern.
Just a couple of quick questions. There was a lot of discussion about speaking to different school officials. Did you speak to any municipal officials?
We met with the district leadership within the district, and then we met with facilities, and I don't know if there's a combination.
With the police chief, the fire chief, the
earlier on, yes, we did. Yep, we walked the buildings with. Yeah, we walked the buildings with them.
You didn't mention that at all.
We did in work.
Yes, there is an important. I can remember a few years ago we had a student collapsed on one of the fields, and as I look at these plans, I'm worried. One of the big issues was how long it took the rescue to get there. And there was no physical way for the rescue to get to the field. And it was a terrible scene, and the student died. Since then we made sure there was access to the field. So when I look at this middle school, it's smack dab where the access, I think, is now. So I just encourage you to, particularly those lower, the mid-level fields, that's where it occurred. So anyway, something we need to focus on, and the public works director as well, because, under the current system, we maintain all of those roads, wintertime and whatever. And I haven't discussed it with the current public works director. I know the former one was always concerned about snow storage and all those issues, particularly because there's such pressure to get schools open immediately. Absolutely. And you need to be sure that you can do that because there's all sorts of issues when they don't open. My second question is this: the council met with a group last week on basketball courts. And I know people really don't want to talk about recreation too much, but regardless, they're very concerned that the single remaining full court basketball court in town, outdoor, is being eliminated. You mentioned about the field being placed maybe with fundraising dollars. Is that the same plan for the basketball court that would be off campus funded by private dollars or town dollars?
No, the basketball court, we didn't mention it, you're right, but it is accounted for in the site estimate, and the idea is that it is going right behind the elementary school adjacent where we're relocating that soccer field. So it has.
It was on the plan that we saw?
You won't see it on there, but it's in the detailed drawing from the civil that is, I could pull it up, but it's harder to read than.
So we shouldn't be building another basketball court somewhere else?
No, the basketball court is included in the project.
Okay.
I'm going to say you shouldn't be building another.
You can build as many as you want.
We're just saying that we've got one covered in this.
That's an example of we need some communication with the municipal side not even though it's one town. It's, you know, I was ready to propose to the council a basketball court on the other side of the library, and, you know, maybe that's not the best proposal to make.
Yeah, there is the relocation of that one, and there was consideration for another location as well.
Could I talk a minute about the fiscal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was asked to look at the financial aspects of a $89.5 million project compared to the school building advisory committee's recommendation, which was about 85. So I did a sheet. There's some copies that are around. I know that the superintendent passed along, but I do want to emphasize that we did get an updated estimate from our financial advisor, Joe Katara, on how much we would need to borrow for if we borrowed today, as opposed to when earlier estimates were done. The earlier estimate was 3.5% of the average interest rates. Today, it's 3.75%. So it's gone up. It's had an uptick of 25 basis points. So what's the impact of that? We looked at the numbers, and the way this is structured, by the time the project's done, we actually borrowed money. The first budget it would hit would be FY27. The budget we're about to begin is FY25. So this is still 2 years out before it would impact taxes. In the first year, the tax impact would be under 2%. It would be about 1.94%. In the second year, FY28, it would be about 5.5%. In 29, it would be 3.28%. It's about 3.25%. And then it begins to be a penny up, a penny down every year for the rest of the 30-year life of the bonds. So if you add that all together, it's just under 11%, or just under 11% that it would increase the taxes. And this is based on a 1% increase in the town valuation every year. And it's also based on assuming that next year's tax increase will be 4% before the project kicks in. So it's building actually from those numbers from a year from now to see the impacts. So anyway, the tax increase at one time for the citizens as a result of the project is never more than 6%. There's a lot of numbers being thrown, but I've tried to put the numbers into exactly what I feel sitting on Highview Road in my home when I get that tax bill of how my tax bill is impacting. I think that's the way a lot of citizens feel. So it's 10.96% for the recommendation that's coming from Harriman this evening. If we look at the amount proposed by the School Building Advisory Committee, the tax impact is 10.4%. So the difference, isn't all that much. If you put it down to, how much of the tax rate is different each year under the tax rate under the Harriman proposal this evening is about 5 cents per thousand more than the School Building Advisory Committee. So very, very close. So then you look at it, going back to my own tax bill, if you look at the average median taxpayer with the new valuations, the home and land is valued at about $720,000. And that's like there's 4,400 properties. That's the 2,200. So it's the median. You take it in the middle. It's not the mean. It's the median. It's half or more, half or less. So the 720,000 valuation, once these increases are fully in place, will be paying $900 more annually than they're paying now. If you look at the School Building Advisory Committee proposal, it's $864 more annually than it is today. So the difference is $36 annually between the two proposals, or $3 a month. And I would like to say that these projections are for new debt service only and do not account for any savings from the retirement of prior debt. So, it's hoped that the prior debt, in my view, this is editorializing now, might be used to be captured and help to fund some other debt service needs, such as, and Tim, I didn't know the chair was going to read that thing at the beginning, but we do have other needs in the community. The schools have other needs, the municipality has other needs, and we need some way to fund those. So I would hope that perhaps we could capture some of that savings and not transfer it all simply to reduce this amount. So those are the projections and for your consideration.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Could I add a quick note to his comment about savings and them not being totally reflected in the costs? I think one thing we struggled with on the SBAC was to articulate how a new building comes with some cost savings to the town inherently. We are at significantly less risk of large problems with it. But in addition to that, the cost of cooling it or the cost of heating it is much lower. The cost of all the costs associated with running with the building come down. And so that was a difficult number for us to articulate in the overall costs, and something that I think that got lost sometimes in our conversations, but a new building costs less to the town year over year moving forward than keeping the existing buildings.
Councillor Jordan.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. This one is probably to Chris Record. The SRRF grants, what is the what are contingency plans if those don't happen? Or are you feeling, well, you never should feel too confident, but can you just talk about that a little?
I can, but I'll actually ask Marcy Weeks, our finance director, to come up and help as well. She's been very successful in helping us pursue those grants. She can articulate what exactly they are, what the benefit of them are, and then I can add on anything to that. Thank you, Marcy, for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. Our success rate has been pretty good since 2020, and we've been awarded $1.5 million worth of projects since then. And the plan with the school revolving renovation fund from the state is that 70% is financed at 0% and 30% is forgiven in a loan, as a grant. So if we are submitting for priority number 1, which is health and safety items, with the help of a good team that we have, I would feel fairly confident with our success rate, because the state is looking for making sure schools are getting the number 1 priorities taken care of. Not saying that I'm being overly confident in any way, Penny, but just that I would feel fairly confident with health and safety items. And as far as the contingency part plan for that, that I could say would have to be something that you could always apply again too. That's the other part of it too. Just because you're turned down the first year, you could always try again in the next round.
So are these items, because, having a contingency plan is important. So are these items, I didn't have a chance to scrutinize them. Are these things that can be put off or done over time, or are they less, I would say, critical, or so the things that you're comfortable with, that if the funding doesn't come, that we don't have to find the money someplace else because we've already got $89.95 million? Is it something along those lines?
That's my understanding, that we would have the opportunity to go into the next round if it was turned down on the first.
Okay, I get it.
And I think Chuck and David are talking at great lengths about this, so we make the right choices in terms of what's in this bond and what is not. But I agree with Marcy. I am confident. We've been successful, and from what I've seen on the list right now, I think those are good targets.
Yeah, we'll use the windows as a perfect example, and a window replace.
You gotta talk into your microphone.
I'll use a window replacement project as a perfect example. There's nothing to say that you have to do all of the windows in a building all at one time.
Yeah.
You can do north and west. You can do south. So you can space those over a few years. So you benefit the most of these type of applications, and also reduce the amount that you're personally, as a town, coming up with to do it. So
Okay.
yeah, there are strategies for doing it that way, and we started to look at those things.
So my next question has to do with, we talk about the fact that there's a roof that will be solar ready. What is the plan for, because we're going to have, I would assume, unless I'm naive about this, is that we're going to have a greater demand for electricity. So therefore, in the on the horizon, is there we anticipate that there'll be solar on the roof when it goes live? Is that the plan?
The intent is that it's ready.
What?
Is it working now?
No.
You have the worst technology issues there, Lisa. My
Oh,
God.
my goodness. Can you hear me now?
I can.
So what's in the base bid is making sure that your roof can support that solar. And so if you find you want to add it in time, it's ready to be put on that roof. Solar is not in the base of the project right now, but you could easily add it as one of the CIP things as you go along. Or if there's another agreement you have in town, like you have that you're doing right now, an additional solar needs a home, it could go there as well.
So solar is not in this price?
No.
Okay. My next question has to do with 1934 building and the decommissioning of it. What's the plan?
I'm gonna make this scream, I know I am. It's never been in the scope of their contract, of Harriman's contract. It's not been in the scope to analyze that building for what it would take to use for whatever purpose. The concept always was the building would return back to the town. And what the project does as part of this estimate is to seal the building from the walls that are torn down or the parts that connect into the building. It's important to note that there'll be no water coming into the building. There'll be no power coming into the building. And I believe there's no heat coming into the building because the heat all comes from the middle school. Is that correct? Yeah. So unfortunately, it means that the building is just secured and left. There are things you can do to put temporary heat in the building so you don't have frozen pipes and all that. And there are probably very, I would say, relatively inexpensive ways to get water into that building. Power usually is not a problem to get from a power company to feed that building, but those costs are not captured in this project. It was never intended to be part of this project, from my understanding.
I just would like to throw out a suggestion to our council chair and other members of the council. We may want to have conversation about this as the project progresses, because this could become one of the hot buttons in this whole moving this project forward, that there'll be a lot of noise around the 1934 building and that the schools are decommissioning it and they're just tossing it to the town. I think we need to demonstrate that we're going to have a conversation about what happens with that building so that as this project progresses, it's not going to detract from the intent of schools. That's just my thought.
Let us take a look and see if there's not a way we can come up with what those cost in a real rough order of magnitude without doing the design. I'm not speaking for Harriman. I'll ask them if we can get some help, but let us take a look and see what we can do.
Yes, Councilor Jordan, I agree with you, and it is an issue that's at the top of my worry list in this whole thing. You know, there's no question that's it's a great building. In talking to some professionals, you know, with a 14,000 square foot building, the needs for parking to upgrade it for various uses. I've received some early estimates of 12.5 to 13 million for that building. So that's something we would definitely have to be looking at for further bonding for sure. You know, it could be a magnificent building, just like this has been great, but it's not something we're planning to do before, but we would have to, for sure, factor it in. I agree with you. And just while I have the mic, just for a quick question for the benefit of the public. And I know you've been touching on this, the two speakers, but just to kind of sum up, and going through the materials, so we had for just as the category of critical needs and repairs that were identified for the 3 schools. And earlier in the year, it was a total of 36.5 million as reported by Harriman and based on Colby Simon studies and their review. Then in April 2024, the Harriman study then indicated about 16 million of that for the high school, 10 million for the elementary school, 10 million for the middle school. And now Mr. Adam reported more current analysis. It sounds like those numbers are reduced. So I'm not sure about the SRRF, how realistic that is and all that, but it looks like those numbers now would be 4.5 million for the elementary school and 11.5 million for the high school, conservatively. So does that sound right? So much lower than the 36.5 million.
It is in fact lower. There's no doubt that it's lower, and it's lower through the efficiencies. I knew I was going to set this thing off.
And then in a quick follow-up, I know that option B has not been met with favor with the school board and all, but I think for the benefit of the public, it seems to me that the great work in these reductions of 20 million from the option E number down to 89 million would also benefit what could be applied to option B. So really the comparison, it would not be 89.5 to 84 million, but really 89.5 to 64 million. Does that sound fair?
Not quite. And I only say that because in this concept, we're taking the middle school off completely, and therefore taking off all of those CIP figures. We're taking those out. We're taking them as if they don't exist. So you really can't compare apples to apples when you're looking at the B option, because it includes all of the capital improvement CIP items for the middle school is included. It's baked into those numbers for that option B. To do a full analysis, you'd really have to go through, and you could go through the middle school and start to define what could become through that, but it's not going to compare to the numbers that we came up with, just for the simple fact that we've taken it offline completely and put that aside. But it could be done. I'm not sure what you'll see from it.
On that note, I also, we talked a lot about the 1934 building right there. One of the things option B didn't do was fix the 1934 building. And I think that we're talking now about how important it would be to upgrade it to function as a part of the town. And in that version of the solution, it was basically going to be untouched. And so regardless of which path we choose, or regardless of those 2 paths, if those are the 2 paths before us, the 1934 building, I'm not discounting the fact that it's not even going to have like the electricity and like water. That's one thing, but neither are bringing it up to standards. So it's going to be a problem either way.
Would any counselor or school board member online like to make a question or a point? Gabrielson, Gillis, or Thompson, or McVeigh? Okay, if you do, just please raise your hand. Okay, school board member Volz.
It's a little bit of a different topic, but we had in some of your future planning for the elementary school and the high school, one of the things that has come up throughout the years is the state school construction funding and the application process. And I know one of the things that came up in the SBAC is that that is opening again this year. We know, the likelihood of, getting on the list and the long-term view is, can take a long time. But one thing we did discuss is potentially having an application completed for the elementary school or the high school, if we do move forward with a middle school, for example, this time, will your work prepare us to submit that application this year for future work on the elementary or the high school? Or maybe that's a better question for Chris.
We are actually currently working with Harriman on that state construction process. So their work has been very beneficial in that. And we're heading to add a few things from our district leadership team, but the work we've put in there is going to help a great deal in that process. But you're right, that's
long time.
It's a long
way
road.
out, but
we will get on the list, but where's
as we look, I was looking at some of your long-term planning though, when you're looking at work at the elementary school in 10 years and the high school in 15 to 20 years, it's like, in reality, we should get on the list for those now because that's how long it takes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I might be able to
Member Saucier. Sure.
Steve, to the benefit of the public, I think maybe just a little what the list is, because I think I can see some confusion. So the state opens up a school construction list roughly every 10 or less years. I think the last one was open in 2017, if I wasn't correctly, 2016. And
about that?
Every 7 years. And so the last list was open in 2017, and school districts apply for funding to replace their buildings. That's how you see South Portland Middle School, Morris High School. And approximately 81 or 82 schools get on there, and the average is one per year that gets replaced when I was looking at it. So you have a list of a lot of schools, but really about 7 or 8 in that 7-year period get replaced. So for the benefit of the public, what we're talking about is they are now opening up the list this fall for applications, that school construction list, right? So
our applications go in, and then there's visitors from the state and Maine DOE go to each and every one of those schools, and they examine it, and then they do their calculations and determine where our schools will rank. And then you are correct. It's basically one project at a time that the state has funds for. And I think they did 8 of the, maybe 9.
9, okay. 9 and 7.
But we are going to try.
So there would still be, so the current list still has 70 or so schools that didn't get funded.
Correct.
They have to reapply. They would have to reapply like we would.
So they have to reapply, even if they were on that list. And there were 74 in the last round and 9 got awarded. But the applications are due the end of August.
Right.
And then they take the next year to evaluate them, and they'll start contacting number 1 on the list that they have been funded, and then they'll go through them. It averages 1 per year. They usually do 2 to 3 every 2 years or something like that.
That's right. Okay.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, the South Portland Middle School that just opened last year was actually from the 2011 funding round, not
correct. Yeah, it was on the same cycle that Edward Little was.
Yeah, it takes. It's a quick follow-up. I've been getting this question too over the weekend and after the parades. That why are we getting our town on the list? And so, for the benefit of the public, what are the criteria? I mean, some people have said it's on a needs based, depending on the wealth of the town or not, or is it the condition of the schools, the buildings that drives it?
It is the condition of the schools. That's what drives it. And they have a whole ranking that Lisa can probably articulate better than I.
Yeah, they go around and rank all of them and determine which ones have the greatest need. Typically the state will fund 100% of a project. They, rumor has it, are looking at some different funding mechanisms to be able to fund more schools than they have in the past, which would be some sort of state local share to be able to get more than 9 on the list helped out, but that's to be determined. Yep.
Councilor Anderson.
Couple of questions. Thank you. How does the size of the new middle school, as you have proposed, compare to the current middle school?
I'm trying to think of the exact square footage of the existing. If you give me a couple minutes, I'll get right back to you on that. I want to get you exact numbers.
I think you're taking down 69,000 square feet.
Taking down more than that.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I have a couple of questions about the, early on, you put together repairs necessary to keep the school open and functional. That was basically option A, which was priced at, I believe, around $37 million. Now, 10 million of that was for the middle school, so we're taking that off the table. It was about 16 for the high school and 10 for the elementary school. And my understanding, and maybe I misunderstand, but that was for essential repairs only. It did not include things like building a new entranceway and building a new STEM classroom.
There were some safety and security items in there related to the secure entrance. But those were essentially looking at them as not part of a project and just repairs only. So until we get to the option, can we really refine that list to understand what's in the project, what's not, what's already accomplished. So if you were to think about that as just a list of improvements that need to occur, at the time, that's what the list was. Since then, we have reviewed that list with the district. We've been able to cross things off, identify things that are already planned, already done, not needed, all of that stuff. So that list has constantly been worked on and refined since then.
Okay. What about the exterior masonry repair? Has that been addressed?
For which school?
Elementary.
For the elementary school. So in the do you have that on yours? I believe on the elementary. That is part of, some of it has been, some of the repointing has been done as part of the CIP. I'm working off of memory and he'll correct me if I'm wrong. And then I believe with part of the window project, it made sense as they're doing the windows to repair some of that because it has to do with the sills of those windows. So it made sense to package that.
Okay, and so that was another question I had. You also had on that list effective windows, replacing the roof.
Mm-hmm.
This proposal does not replace the roof of the elementary school.
We've identified that as one of the SRRF items because that would be a good candidate for that.
Okay, and I take it the skylights would go along with the roof.
Yep.
So you've basically cut the essential needs of the elementary school from, and this is rough, from 10 million to 9 million. So that's pretty close to the same. The high school, you had identified $16 million in necessary repairs to keep the building open and functional.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I understand the presentation tonight,
Mm-hmm.
this proposal includes 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference there of 14 million.
Yeah. So some of that is a big chunk is the abatement. Another thing we recognize in studying that number further is there is a duplication in soft cost. So the 25% was accidentally counted twice because somebody grabbed the column of the total from that already had it and added it again. So that's a couple $1 million right there that we found we could take right off the top. From there, one of the bigger chunks is what we talked about for the SRRF, which is your envelope, the study, and the repair going with it. That's a huge majority of that dollar number. So those are the three big items that really have been separated from that.
Okay. And I have a question. Maybe it should go to the town manager or the superintendent.
Depends how tough it is.
I think this proposal is fabulous, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, it's like, it sounds too good to be true, honestly, compared to compared to what we've been seeing in the past. So one of my concerns is I want to make sure that the assumption that has been presented through all of these presentations about tax impact, the assumption that the municipal side of the increase will be 4%. How valid is that, given that we now have a CIP for the high school, for the school department of 1.2 million every year, which is higher than it has been. Of course, the 1934 building is unknown. I mean, how can we stick with that 4%?
Yeah, to clarify, and certainly Mike can add whatever he wants. Right now in our budget for this coming school year, that thankfully was supported, we have $700,000 for CIP and $600,000 for maintenance and repair. So that's where that target number that Chuck was referring to. So we're not looking at that as an additional, it's in the budget. So when we were talking about how to utilize those dollars and aim to keep those lines with minimal increases, that's what we're targeting.
So you're saying that it'll stay pretty much the same?
I think we can predict some inflationary adjustments.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the intent. That's the intent. And I want to get this right too. We agree on that.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going with a 4% assumption, I just want to make sure that none of the impacts of this project will alter that.
The aim with that 4% was, I think, an average. Like this coming year, we're below that, I believe, and it'll be up and down. But that's still my intent on the school side, at least as superintendent. I don't know what Mike wants to share.
It's somewhat easy for me to answer because I'm not going to be around to propose the next budget. But on a more serious basis, from what I've seen with the budgeting and other information, I think the expenditure side, with fiscal discipline from the council and the school board, that number is very much attainable. The challenge I see is I did an analysis at the end of last week on where we stand with state valuation, which is what controls revenue sharing, the county tax, and the school funding amount from the state. The state valuation for the current year in Cape Elizabeth went up 28%. With the 9th highest community in the state for state valuation. We have more state valuation than Waterville, for instance, Bangor, Lewiston. And we appear to have had, the analysis I did on Thursday, the largest state valuation increase of any community in the state. There might have been 1 or 2 outliers, sometimes Cranberry Islands, some of those places have odd numbers, but, so I think there is money in for the county budget, but I worry about the county budget. I worry about state school funding, and I worry about revenue sharing, whether or not those can get hit. Those, it's way too early to know the impacts of those. We'll have a new legislature in January or December, actually, but they actually start meeting in January. And, the legislatures in the last 4 years have been very good about fully funding revenue sharing and doing 55% of the average state cost on education. That is not guaranteed into the next legislative session. And I think as the legislators run, we have a couple of candidates here in Cape Elizabeth, actually 4 candidates for the 2 House seats and 2 for the 2 Senate seats. I think it would behoove anyone to ask them, they're going to continue to support the full funding of revenue sharing, continue to fully fund the 55% average statewide school funding, because, and I think the county, we need to pay more attention to the county budget too. And I don't know, in Cape Elizabeth, by the way, from the listing of the county doesn't have a representative to the county budget committee. Maybe there is one, but the county doesn't know it. And so I would, encourage the council to look at that. That's a little longer than you wanted, Councillor Anderson, but we can stick to it with fiscal discipline on the expenditure side. The revenue side makes me nervous. I sent you another email today that even cable TV revenues, they're down, about $30,000 from what was budgeted, because people are unhooking the cable and going to streaming, and we're not getting the franchise fee. So revenues are, but people are going to buy cars. I don't know. Fort Williams is looking good. Keep the weather good, and that revenue comes in. But it's tough. Thank you.
Chairman Reiniger?
Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I appreciate it if I could just have a couple quick thoughts. Primarily, I'm looking at page 13 of Lisa's presentation, which, by the way, I think you guys have done a really nice job coming together with a compromise that we can get behind and try to see if we can get some success with. My biggest concern that I guess I just wanted to express is, again, going back briefly to the 1934 building. The good news is this planning process is going to give us enough time to do a good job of coming up with a good plan for the 1934 building. I think it's historically going to be difficult for us not to do something significant with it. But in looking at that diagram, and I don't know if it would be easy for Lisa to pull up page 13 of the 49, but I'm looking at that little white building up there right above the relocated field, right next to Scott Dyer Road. And I just want to make sure that, and I'm sure she's already has planned for that, but it seems like it's kind of up there, just kind of isolated all by itself, and would hope that we have planned not only to keep that building, button it up and make it available for the town to do something with, but are we making sure that we've got enough land set aside as well for any parking considerations or access and egress that building might need as part of what we're going to repurpose that building for. So that's the only other thought I had on the 1934. And nice job on tonight's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Do you want me to answer the question? So I've pulled up page 13, the overview. And I will say that rectangle of the field is relatively diagrammatic. It's in that area. There is more space between that white building and that field. You do have the existing parking off of Scott Dyer right there that could serve as parking for that building, as well as there is space on either side of that building. But there is space between the field and behind there, so you do have room for egress.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Councilor Thompson? Would any Councilor Gillis, Gabrielson, School Board Member McVeigh, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't at this time. I'm
okay.
Observing the presentation, and yeah,
I'll sit.
Others have asked.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Gabrielson and Gillis. In the room, School Board Member Curry Sparks, or any further comments, or Councilor Harriman? Nope.
Tim.
Oh, Councilor Jordan.
Yes. I just want to say that you've done a fabulous job. I can support this. I will support it. I will just ask if you can keep chipping away at the total price. That would be great. But I think the direction that we are headed is really positive. I think it's a good plan. So thank you.
All right. Apparently the Boston Celtics are winning tonight, so that's quite important.
I can wonder.
All right.
More good news.
Well, I guess I'll ask, but we've been here about 3 hours. Thank you so much. Now I have my new sidekick here, Chair Seyfried, see if she'd like to make a final comment.
I don't know. I guess for our purposes of the agenda, there was a kind of a final discussion. So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in. I always like to speak last, like as the chair, you know what I'm saying? So if there are other people that want to like add to discussion or have anything to say. Okay, fine.
I have an odd question. And you can tell me that it's not appropriate at this point in time, but could the council chair and councilors who voted in support of ensuring the health and safety of our students, that it says they intends to put forward a bond referendum in the amount sufficient at the minimum. You remember what we talked about at our council meeting? How does that play into the work that we have seen here tonight? And so maybe this isn't the place to have the conversation, but we have a very positive proposal on the table. And I think what happened at the council meeting regarding this potential referendum needs to be discussed because you've got collision going on.
Well, at what you're referring to was meant in that context to be when we were talking about the plan going forward, the timeline, when it was uncertain as to what would come out of the school board and, you know, in all these discussions. But at the same time, we were told, the community was told about the critical needs at the schools. So in that context, the discussion was a message from the town council of intent to at least address the critical needs. So what we're hearing tonight is a plan that does address many of the critical needs. So it's not a conflict in that sense.
So therefore, the conversation that we had at our council meeting was a bit too premature because we had not heard the proposal.
Well, I don't know if you could, it was the part of the evolution of the process. So, yeah.
I probably shouldn't comment on this, but you know, that proposal that came forward, what it did say, I had not seen it before the meeting. And it said at a minimum, the council would do that. And, you know, I think I hear you, Penny. It was frustrating for many people. I understand that. But, you know, there is a spirit of trying to work together. And I would hope that the council would build toward that.
We would hope.
Okay.
I just want to say also that there's been a deliberate and intentional misrepresentation in social media that the council was not going to approve anything over 37 or 40 million, which was never the intention, ever. The council the resolution was, we want to make sure that the essential needs are being provided for. So this deliberate attempt to mischaracterize and I'm not saying it's you, Penny. I'm not saying that. It's what I've seen on social media. It's just very dishonest and divisive.
Chairman Reiniger?
Councilor Thompson.
I would really like to, rather than take a step backwards at this point, I'd like to continue the good momentum we've got going based on this 3-hour meeting we've had tonight and this excellent plan that's being put together by Lisa and Chuck and the school board with apparent support from the town council. It seems somewhat meaningless to take a step backwards and in this evening and on anything but a positive note. I'd like to move forward with what I think is a pretty positive feeling here, and we've talked for months now. It's going to take everybody on both sides of this issue working hard to get this proposal to a successful outcome. So let's move forward in a positive fashion.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilor Gabrielson. Sure.
I'd just like to build on that and recall back to our earliest conversations with the council and the school board as we were working to form the school building advisory committee, and recall that you know, I remember saying at the time that my hope and goal coming out of the school building advisory committee was not to get to a point where we had something that would pass by 51%, but have a proposal that could pass at the election by a margin similar to the one at which the last one was defeated. And I think this is a strong proposal, and I think it has a good chance of doing that. So I'm strongly supportive and look forward to learning more about this proposal as it develops and as we continue the conversation.
Thank you, Council Gabrielson. Council Harriman, to give a comment?
I was just going to comment on Stephanie's comment that maybe you should build a little thicker skin about the social media stuff, because it's never going to change and you got a long term ahead of you.
So you're saying there's going to be misconceptions and distortions all the time?
It's been happening for years, but you just can't let that get to you.
Well, I'm just
You
gonna,
have to
if
stick
I
to the
see him, I'm
facts.
gonna call him out, that's all.
But
I'm not losing sleep over it.
it sure seems like you are, because you bring it up a lot. That's all I'm saying. It's just like, at some point, you got to stop reading the 57 comments on one post. Like, it's just not going to do you any good. It's just my advice.
I appreciate that, and I'll tell Counselor Anderson I used to cry.
What's that?
I used to cry. I don't cry anymore. It'll be fine. I want to just comment. I'm so happy to hear from Counselor Thompson. He's somebody that I have known for a really long time. I know how deeply he cares about students, and I know how deeply he cares about safety and education. And so I am so heartened to hear that I think we're coming together. I think it feels like we're coming together. It feels like we're moving in a positive direction. And I feel hopeful. And I too want to move on in a positive way, in a partnership, a thoughtful, responsible partnership. I think I've said it.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, Elizabeth. Board Chair Seifried, and I think we can be adjourned. All right. Thank you, everybody.
The superintendent predicted 4 hours ago would end at 9:30.
I did. I said 9:30.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure. Thank you.
Not his first rodeo.